Thanks for tuning into another edition of Another Dolphins Podcast. It is a big week. It is the final week before the 2024 NFL season begins. Joshua Houtz, how are we feeling about the Miami Dolphins coming off a 24-14 loss to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers to close out the preseason?
Pretty good, I think, right, Jake? I mean, I feel like this, again, on paper is one of the better teams we've seen. We know where the areas of weaknesses are. We see, what they can improve at. But I feel like we're heading into this year. We should all feel pretty confident about what this Dolphins team looks like. So I'm kind of glad we got this loss out of the way. If we would have went 3-0 in preseason, then, we might have lost in week one. That's the way my mind works. But
Logic, I like it.
Nice preseason altogether, man. Yeah, sound logic for sure.
We didn't see much of the starters this preseason. The starters actually sat for Miami's loss on Friday night to the Buccaneers. And Josh, I think we kind of assumed there wasn't going to be a lot we can take away from this game, but blanket statement, the Buccaneers starters kind of manhandled Miami's second stringers, and I don't think that's too much of a surprise, but I saw on Twitter a couple people were kind of shooked, but I think it's one of those things, like, you see it looks a little terrifying when, maybe one play Jack Driscoll gets kind of pushed back 5 yards, but starters versus second string guys, you're feeling not as queasy when you say that out loud.
Yeah, I don't know if it was to, get the Bucs players, confident and stuff heading into the year or what it was. But we see this thing going around social media. Even the NFL's hyping it up, right? He pushed back Jack Driscoll. I don't know how much different it would have been if it was Liam Eichenberg out there, but McDaniels. I say that, but then at the bottom of our rundown, Jake, I just saw this when I was going through some of these quotes. McDaniel said that Liam has earned that opportunity to be in a jersey in the game against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. It was more so a reaction to what he's been doing in and out, day in and day out. He's probably had as good of a camp as anybody and has really put together some good practices. So when I heard as good of a camp as anybody, maybe we're a little bit queasier than we've always been queasier than his coaching staff. But maybe it's not so bad as we're starting to think. But Jack Driscoll, man, he got pushed 7-8 yards back into the quarterback. It was not pretty.
Speaking of not pretty, man, this quarterback battle has a lot of people feeling queasy. Obviously, Josh, I don't think there's any debate that there is a cooked up, full steam ahead quarterback battle with Mike White and Skylar Thompson. Mike White Friday night went 5 for 9, 37 yards. Skylar Thompson Friday 19 of 27 for 190 yards, 2 touchdowns and an interception. He came in the middle of the second quarter, I believe it was, Josh, instantly came in, led a touchdown drive. Where do you feel about the Miami Dolphins quarterback depth chart entering the season?
Yeah, I feel like this is kind of what we want to see. We came into this, but we didn't want to see this close of a battle. I think we want to see someone pull away. But heading into this game 3, I want to see Skylar Thompson rise to that occasion. We know he's been in this system for with this team for 2 years. He's been in Mike McDaniel's system, so 3 years with the Dolphins. So, this is our third year, yeah. So heading into his third year with Mike McDaniel, he should be ready to go. And he went out there, he was completing passes. The offense looked better. You went through his stats. It looked like a different offense with Skylar Thompson out there. I don't think that we feel good with either of these guys going in if, God forbid, something happens to Tua. But I think, heading into this one with both each having one win heading into this one, I think Skylar Thompson pulled away. Hopefully I'll have every drop back done so we can compare the two. But it's not so necessarily cut and dry, right? Because Mike White was working with some of those guys that are far, far down the depth chart at times. But Skylar was as well, and he was making some plays. So I think Skylar won this one. What do you say, Jake?
Mike White's preseason, he finished 20 completions of 43 attempts for just 179 yards, no touchdowns, no interceptions. Skylar Thompson's preseason, 61 attempts, he completed 35 of them, 57% of his passes for 346 yards, 3 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. But Josh, the one number that really stands out to me is Mike White was sacked 4 times. Skylar Thompson was only sacked once. I think what the Miami Dolphins are going to do, how this offense is going to operate, if Tua is going to, miss a Week 14 game for a jam. I don't even want to talk into existence. But basically what I'm trying to get at is I think Miami has the playmakers to get it done. And Mike White, it just kind of felt like it was a lot of dink and dunk. It was what a lot of people think Tom Brady was, where just 2 yards, 3 yards, every pass attempt, where I think Skylar Thompson, you take the good and the bad. The 2 interceptions, but only being sacked once. He's going to go out there and at least try to make a couple plays. Mike White, it just kind of seemed like there were a couple times just, curl up into a ball and call it a play type of scenarios.
Yeah, shame on me for not knowing the splits and things like that. But I do think at times Skylar might have had that starting offensive line. At least in the one game, he probably had them out there with him. So maybe that factors in this a little bit. But just looking at this from our perspective, watching football for so many years, it looked like Skylar pulled away in this one. And again, he's a younger player. He's a guy that they've, built up throughout these last few years. And again, he has some playoff experience. So if he can get the confidence, who knows what he could slowly become, but no one wants to see Skylar Thompson out there. I think you said week 14, Jake. You meant week 16 or 17 when the Dolphins were sitting their starters, right? That's what you meant. Yeah, that's what it was.
Someone that we're hoping, Josh, and I think throughout the preseason we've really accepted that they're going to probably have a bigger role in this offense than we initially thought, and that's Jaylen Wright. He tied Tampa's Sean Tucker for a game-high 7 carries, 36 rushing yards, and Josh, you see the 7 carries, you see 36 rushing yards, you kind of assumed that the third preseason game would be the Jaylen Wright show with the other injuries the Miami Dolphins are dealing with. They cut Salvon Ahmed. Chris Brooks did not play in this game. But then he scrolled down the stat box a little bit. He was targeted 6 times as a receiver, 4 receptions for 41 yards, man. I was really surprised to see how big of a part of the offense Wright was.
Yeah, and I hope that's something that Tua, starts to establish, right? He always looks for Tyreek Hill at times and, the big plays. If they can take these checkdowns, I mean, you were sitting there talking about that, Jake. I'm picturing Jaylen Wright coming out of the backfield. But you already have Devon Achane, lined up out wide. And then you got Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, so many mismatches. And there were some targets where I think he ran the right route. I think he was open on 3rd down where I believe Mike White might have hit him short. So, man, he looks like a playmaker. And for us coming in here, we are big fantasy guys. I think we both had our shares in Dynasty, but there's a time this season where you could see Jaylen Wright being maybe more of that, I don't want to say featured back, but featured back. I mean, this guy looks like he can do everything, right? He looks like a complete 3-down back. I rarely see him on the ground. I mean, when he's running into the outside, he's bouncing off guys and just staying on his feet as he, trots outside with a big smile on his face. So I love what we've seen out of him, intrigued by what he can bring to this, and definitely surprised by those 6 targets. But again, if they can open that game, this offense up, man, that's some scary stuff.
Too many talented and quality running backs is an excellent problem to have, especially in this Mike McDaniel offense. This offense led the league in yards per attempt last year, so I expect them to continue that momentum. Josh, the only reason Jaylen Wright's 36 rushing yards wasn't the highest in the game is because Malik Washington, man, he broke free for a 40-yard carry. He also had a 7-yard reception, a kick return for 45 yards, and a punt return for 28 yards. As a 6th-round pick, man, it's no surprise that the Dolphins, especially Mike McDaniel, are going to do everything they can to get this guy in the field one way or another.
Yeah, and I hate, once I say something, I almost cannot get it out of my head. And the Jarvis Landry thing, is that not what you think every time you see him with the ball in his hand now, where there's returning a kick on the end of rounds? I mean, he's not the fastest player, but when he's out there and he has that ball in his hand, he does at times look like the fastest player. So you can see his frame as well. He's breaking tackles. He's doing a little bit of everything. So I'm so intrigued with the way he gets involved. I mean, we've seen that Debo-type stuff with Eric Ezukama in the past. We've seen the way they use Malik Washington. So we know what's happening with this receiving core, right? We know we're going to need somebody to step up. If Malik Washington get out in that field and make some plays like this, 1 or 2 of these big plays throughout a game, those can change things, and especially the kick and punt returns. I mean, no disrespect to Braxton Berrios, and I know it's preseason. I know the rules are changing, but I got to be honest. I think I've seen more out of Malik Washington this preseason than maybe we've seen out of Braxton Berrios in the return game. Not over his entire career, maybe with the Dolphins. So definitely like what I saw. He had the longest punt return for the Dolphins since Jakeem Grant in 2021, and that was the 7th longest kickoff return, his 45-yarder in the NFL this year. So that's pretty impressive stuff for a rookie, again, that many teams passed over many times.
And the Miami Dolphins do have to be smart here. Josh, what was it might have been the first kick return, obviously big play, everyone's feeling good. I think they then targeted him the next play as a receiver, and he got absolutely annihilated, and he was down on the field for a second. That is why every team was passing him. That's why he kind of fell in the draft a little bit. He's a smaller dude. He's listed at 5'9", I believe. So the Dolphins have to be careful here. I love what he can do as a kick returner. I love what he can do as a punt returner, but he's not someone you're going to be able to rely on to do everything. You're really going to have to protect him, just because I don't think anybody wants to see him taking shots like that. You have an offense that has Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle. You got to be smart when you're using someone like Malik Washington so you can, maximize him, have him out there as often as possible to take advantage of that big play opportunity where, man, you're so right, where in an offense that has so much speed, he does kind of feel like that Jarvis Landry where once he gets the ball, maybe the Mario star goes off and he runs just a little faster and he can kind of finagle through everyone.
That's a perfect way to put it. And I mean, you're talking about a small frame. I mean, it was a hospital ball they threw to him, but he got up. I thought we weren't going to see Malik Washington. I thought, with all the injuries, they were going to take him out, and he was in there again, like we said, busting off those big plays. So excited to see what he can bring to the table. He's one of those late round stashes. Again, we love fantasy football, Jake. Pick him. We shouldn't be talking about this. We have a fantasy draft later today. We're both going to be going after him. late rounds.
I can't believe how high Jaylen Wright's just skyrocketing up boards, man. I did a best ball draft yesterday, and I digress. That's definitely a podcast we should do before the season starts. But man, I can't switch the subject because next on our list, Channing Tindall, game high 12 tackles. No one else on the Miami Dolphins had more than 6 against the Buccaneers. And that's how many solo tackles Tindall had. So man, just a well-rounded night for the young linebacker.
Yeah, I've been waiting forever for this. I mean, I feel kind of, foolish to sit here and, get excited about some of these players, thinking about what they could do. But I read over Mike McDaniel's press conference. He's excited. He's right. This is now, the third defense coordinator, the third system that Channing Tindall's in, and you want to see what he can do with Anthony Weaver. And honestly, he stepped up. We heard Anthony Weaver talk about it. We've heard Mike McDaniel after this game talk about it. He was all over the field in this one. I mean, he looked like a playmaker. Again, you're playing against guys that are fringe roster bubble, things like that. But when you needed him to step up to hopefully get that roster spot that we continue to talk about, and you got to give shout out to Curtis House Bolton, right? He looked good. He's out there, I think, calling plays and things like that. So I don't know what the Dolphins are going to do here. They're going to have a tough decision, but Channing Tindall stepped up in a game where he needed to play his best football. So I hope he sticks around. I love what he brought in college. I like that, tape, and definitely liked what we saw in this one. He's coming off the edge, blitzing. He's, dropping back in coverage, doing a little bit of everything. And that's what we need, that versatile depth piece. He doesn't need to be a starter, just a depth piece.
Somebody you can trust, and this is the first little sense of trust from the coaching staff. We saw Anthony Weaver building him up throughout the preseason, man. So that is awesome to see. Did you write this down? Are you breaking news here? Is Elijah Campbell listed as a captain? What was that?
He was in this last game, so I thought that immediately. Elijah Campbell, Robert Jones, and the long snapper, Blake Ferguson. They were the team's 3 captains in this one. And for some reason, I thought it was I don't remember who I thought it was. I didn't think it was Elijah Campbell, but I had to go back and look. And when I saw it was Elijah Campbell, I was like, Houtz, I've been sitting here saying that we were probably going to get rid of him in my 53-man roster predictions. I know this doesn't sit here and solidify him, but when he has familiarity with this team, he can do things on special teams. He plays decent throughout the secondary. So maybe we were overlooking Elijah Campbell's spot on this roster. I just had to bring that up, man. He was listed as a team captain versus the Bucs.
I get, showing off players. Like maybe they're looking for another team if they're not going to make Miami's final 53-man roster or something like that. You're not doing it on the coin toss. Like that's something you're kind of showing to all the other players. So yeah, man, I'd say that's a pretty good hunch that Elijah Campbell will be one of those guys on the 53. Somebody who you could be pretty comfortable with as a backup member of the secondary and also someone in special teams. So that's good to know. Hey, all right, let's get into the ugly stuff. The injuries. Aaron Brewer, Mike McDaniel said nothing has really changed with that. I feel pretty good about it, but I don't know anything concrete. I think that's what's important tonight for us to feel really good about where Rob Jones and Lester Cotton had been at. Josh, man, would you be surprised at this point if Aaron Brewer is not active on opening day?
Would I be surprised if he's not active? I don't think I would. I'm that negative. I'm that doom and gloom. Like at this point, I feel like it's going to be Liam Eichenberg starting at center, no matter how week to week or however he wants to sugarcoat it. So, how many
weeks is he going to be out? Let me ask you that.
Did we already do this on the last one? It was like, will Liam start over 5.5 games? And I think I said I would. So I'm just staying out of it, man. I'm Eeyore. I am Eeyore in this situation. But I go back to Baltimore. Maybe it's not the worst thing that we have. It's definitely the worst thing if Liam Eichenberg starts center. So I hope egg on my face. I hope you're playing back this clip and we're just like Aaron Brewer's back after we record this or something. But I don't know, man. It does not look good. What do you say? I want to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, I don't think Aaron Brewer is going to be ready. No. I wonder if center is going to be a position the Dolphins are kind of pushing for. How rosters need to be cut down to 53 players by Tuesday afternoon. So you wonder if maybe that's something the offensive line in general, interior of the offensive line, if that's going to be a situation that the Dolphins kind of look for an upgrade. On Odell Beckham Jr., will he practice before the start of the season? McDaniel, I'm hopeful about a lot of things. Again, I'm not nervous about it. Not really giving us a lot of information there. Josh, Odell Beckham, do you think he's going to be active week 1? I don't think so either.
Yeah, I'm just going to leave it at that. None of this sounds good.
It doesn't sound good now, especially because the games aren't happening, but I'm hoping by week 3 maybe, both these guys are back and then they play 14 games this season and we just completely forget about it, even though it was like our whole world for 2 weeks. That's kind of where I hope we stand with these guys, but we're gonna have to wait and see. Brandon Peely, who got hurt after making a couple plays in Friday's game, just talking to him on the field, McDaniel said he felt like it wasn't serious. That's something we're gonna have to wait and see, but man, there's a spot for Peely to be an instant impact player on this defense, whether a rotational piece or if someone like Benito Jones isn't ready week 1, you kind of trust him out there with guys like Zach Sealer and Calais Campbell.
Yeah, we want him back out there. We want him on this 53-man roster. We like what he's seen, and he fits a type of mold on that defensive line that the Dolphins could definitely use, and he's a young player that they've already invested some time in. So we want Brandon Peely out there. That's Jake's boy.
Jalen Ramsey, don't got to spend a lot of time on this one. McDaniel said no concerns about him. Pretty simple. It is that time of the year, too, where we're looking for any sort of news we can find. We're 2 weeks away from the season. So if someone doesn't practice, you're instantly, fearing, you go full Eeyore mode where the world's crumbling, Chicken Little, we could even say.
We'd be complaining, though, if they were out there practicing and they got hurt or something. Yeah. So we sucks that, we're sitting here uncertain of what's to come, but we'd much rather these guys be bubble wrapped for week 1 than anything serious happen.
And Josh, when you consider that argument itself, the idea of you want to protect these guys or just, hey, let's see them practicing. Eric Ezukama, Patrick McMorris, 2 guys that I think played pretty well this preseason, were not active against the Buccaneers. McDaniel said, I would say at this point, what I do know is it's not longer than week to week. Doesn't sound like a big deal. McDaniel mentioned that their recent injuries. So, Josh, is this a situation where maybe they're already safe on the 53, where McDaniel didn't have to see them anymore and they were just bubble wrapped? Or is this something, too, where maybe their roster spots are still in doubt?
Yeah, I almost saw it more so as these are players that, with all these other injuries we have, we got to protect them because of what we need early on in this year. So I think this does say that Patrick Morris probably made the roster and Eric Ezukama. When he's out there, that's his biggest thing, right? When he's out there, he looks like an absolute preseason god, a superstar, but we need to see him do it in regular season games, and we need him out there in regular season games. So hopefully this is just cautionary. Hopefully those boots or whatever they were wearing, everything's good there. Aaron Brewer, he had something on his hand, someone said. So I don't know, man. I'm still a little queasy about that, but season's here, man. Season's here. Cut down day is upon us. Excited.
We will be back with another podcast on Tuesday, wrapping up all the news the Miami Dolphins make as the roster goes down to 53. It's important to keep in mind here, too, that there's a 16-man practice squad. There's a lot of different things the Dolphins can do to manipulate the roster, so keep that in mind. Joshua, any final thoughts here as we wrap up on a lovely Sunday?
Yeah, to make sure, right? No, 2 weeks away, though, right? Is it 14 days till the regular season starts exactly for us Dolphin fans? So, oh, man, it felt like so long until we got here. Now we're here and enjoy every second of it. The good, the bad, the ugly. Enjoy every minute of it because we know it's not going to be here all the time. And when it's gone, we miss it more than anything.
14 days from the start of the season. You mentioned it. We got a fantasy draft today, and that is it. That is all the time we have on Another Dolphins Podcast. Thank you all so much for joining us. Like I said, we will be back soon with a new episode, but until then, fins up.
Fins up.